Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Fantasy Football University, FFU, coming at you yet again in the off season. We are so happy to have you guys with us. I am Mr. Bill DeCousis. I am here with Mr. Tom Lang. Mr. Lang, how are you doing, sir?
I'm ready to rock today. It's gonna be a fun show. We'll be doing this really fun controversial show. No fantasy football talk, little break away from it, and then a little break next week, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks. So we're excited to bring this show to you today.
Absolutely. A little bit off the beaten path. We've done this a couple times this off season. We're happy to break up the monotony just a little bit while we crave for the fantasy season to come back upon us. So we'll jump into that, but not to break too far away from the fantasy stuff. Let's just cover a little bit of news and some other little fun stuff early at the top of the show here. So we were kind of mentioning a little bit off air. We just wanted to touch on the flag football nonsense. So yeah, catch me up because the non-professionals completely crushed Tom Brady and everybody else in flag football.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't just Tom Brady. It was Jalen Hurts, who's not a quarterback, throwing interceptions. It was Joe Burrow threw a couple picks. It was very interesting. I mean, then you had the uh, uh, the guys, the YouTube stars. I forget their names. The brothers,
Logan, yeah.
Logan Paul. They were out there playing football. I mean, it's touch football, so who knows, with tackle when that gets involved and you're getting hit by a 350 pound lineman. But anyway,
Yeah, he was
yeah, I
nasty.
mean, the biggest, I would say, FU to the flag football players couple months ago was Jalen Hurts saying, that commercial with basically the Olympics saying, "You ready for us?" Whatever, Summer Olympics, whatever he said. Well, you know what? Yes, they were ready for you. They were ready for you. They came out, they showed up, and NFL players, as we discussed a couple weeks ago, within a controversial topic in itself, should not be allowed to play in this.
Why?
Number one, contract. They are
Uh,
getting paid millions of dollars to play to basically not do anything to injure themselves for the season. There is no reason, especially in a Summer Olympics, there is no reason for them to miss training camp, to even before training camp, to potentially get themselves injured. Number one, because their season is a week or 2 weeks after that, basically starting
I have
training camp.
I have a rebuttal to that, but go ahead. I don't want to slow
On
your train.
top of that, there is zero reason for them to play. You have guys that professionally do it. They came out there and they showed up and they showed out. There's no reason maybe one or two players could go out there and to do their thing. There is zero reason for it to be 100% NFL.
Okay.
They are not flag football players.
I have a rebuttal to that too. But
Sure, go
all
ahead.
right. So the rebuttal to the first thing that you said. So by that logic, our players in the NBA should not be competing in the Olympics either, right?
Well, no, because they shouldn't. And half of them really don't take it as serious. There was only two really interesting years was, back in, we were probably were toddlers at this point when Michael
Yeah, the Dream
Jordan, the
Team.
Dream Team, and then it wasn't recently, but let's just say when Kobe was there, and Kobe basically went after Paul Gasol, and uh what you call it, that the big video, the biography video that they put together for it, and that was an interesting time. That's when, but now it's just like they go out there and they just mess around, and when, especially when LeBron James is out there, LeBron James, he's terrible. He's 41 years old, 40 years old, whatever he is now. Like he doesn't have to play anymore. So it's uninteresting, just like the NBA is uninteresting to
But
watch.
well, we'll get into that at some point. But you're getting real anecdotal about this. If you can't you can't, if that can of worms has already been opened, you can't put the can like you can't cover it again. Like that's it. Like they changed it in 1992, the Dream Team, and then we're off to the races. Our basketball players compete in every single Summer Olympics. So if you have a fundamental problem with what you're saying about the NFL players in flag football, then you'd be campaigning to be like, nope, just amateurs then in the Olympics then from now on. But then where what that would apply to every other sport too. Hockey, every other thing too. Like you can't So you have to be consistent about how you
I
say
think
that.
honestly, if something's played within the season and then people take a break from that, then I think that that can potentially be allowed. But the contract has to allow it as well too.
Well, let me get to the second rebuttal about kind of the other thing you mentioned. So, and I say it on the backs of like, let's say Patrick Mahomes, because he has already expressed interest himself that he would love to do this. Um, I'm not saying that the players that they threw out there to beat these other flag football professionals, they were not the best. I mean, it's Tom friggin' Brady at 49,000 years old and everybody else. Like it's just not the
But I
best.
mean, technically, you had Joe Burrow out there, and I mean, everybody still believes that Hurts is a good quarterback, but he's not.
Yes, and I wonder how seriously they were taking it. But if they did take it seriously and there were plays and there were some whatever, I still imagine that the absolute best players would be better than
Well,
these flag football professionals.
yeah, I understand that you take it serious, but like, you just basically made yourself look like a complete trash ball, going out there and getting annihilated by these guys that if you didn't take it serious. So like, they were calling you out before that. Like, wouldn't you go out there and actually give it your all?
But they didn't have their best players. They didn't have Mahomes. They didn't have Gibbs. They didn't have,
But I have a question for you. What does it matter, right? They're professional football players. They get paid millions of dollars to go out there and play. These guys they're getting paid by whatever they're getting paid by, sponsorships. They're not million they're probably making good money right now because of what they just did. But I don't believe that at all that they didn't try.
much as I don't like Joe Burrow, I honestly think that if he was on his game, it would have looked a lot better personally. But I just fundamentally, whatever, we can have a disagreement. I just don't think that they tried really that hard. I think it was more of a promotional thing. And by the way, for those guys to have called them out, I don't know how much they called them out. They were just talking about having an equal opportunity to show, like, meaning if there were tryouts and somebody actually, amazingly, was a better quarterback for flag football than Patrick Mahomes, then God bless, you're a better quarterback for flag football than Patrick Mahomes, then you get to play. They were just complaining about just if Puka Nacua decides to play flag football, you don't just give him the spot. No. Puka Nacua will have to prove that he's a better flag football receiver. You know what I'm saying? So like that kind of thing. So I can understand where they're coming from. On the contract thing, yeah, you wouldn't like these guys to get hurt, but again, representing your country within the Olympics, we've already opened up that can of worms across all other disciplines. So I don't know. I could see the other side to it. I don't, I'm not poo-pooing what you're saying,
Eh,
but
I,
it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch them lose actually a little bit. It was pretty fun.
it was quite interesting.
Yeah. A couple of the quick little news before we jump into our controversial topic episode here. So a little bit mentioned in the news. I just wanted to touch on my horrific New York Jets. So it's been out and out declared. I don't know how it was anything different, but like Geno Smith is the starting quarterback for the New York Jets, which was really nice that they mentioned that. And so, do you think they end up with the number one pick, or do you think it ends up where they win enough games and they screw it up, and then somehow we don't get Archie Manning in some way? Like, how do you think this ends up?
They're drafting a quarterback this year.
Then what? They're not going to get Archie Manning next year?
No, what's going to happen? They said he's a starting quarterback. So Geno Smith is a starting quarterback at this point in time. But until they draft a quarterback, and then they have a quarterback battle, and then what's going to happen is they're going to decide the day before that this quarterback is starting, or maybe moments before that this quarterback is starting. So don't get off the Aaron Glenn train with him doing that from last year. He's going to do it again. They're going to draft a quarterback this year.
Who has the number one pick in the draft next year?
This year,
Next year.
next year. Well, I'll tell you something right now. It ain't going to be the Giants. The Giants are going to be a winning team.
I
There's a lot of winning culture moving on right now there.
I think you're
Um,
right.
but and honestly, I don't think it's going to be the Jets. I think there's two teams in that division that are trying to tank as much as possible. I think it's going to be the Dolphins.
Maybe you're right. I don't see how they could possibly be worse than the Jets. Although the Jets defense is really great now. So I don't, oh my God. It's so hard being a fan of the Jets, man.
It
It's so
is.
hard.
Jump ship, man. There's Big Blue is always taking on more New Yorkers.
Nah, I'd be criticized. Um, All right. So any other news you want to get to? You want to jump right in here?
Yeah, just two more things.
Yeah.
So obviously we know what happened with Seattle. They lose Kenneth Walker, and Zach Charbonnet is expected to return in some point this 2026 season. So they don't have technically they don't have a starting running back.
And a,
They have Emmanuel Wilson back there.
an
Good job,
eventual
guys.
return. An eventual
Um,
return.
there's two more things. CJ Stroud and the Texans have been exercising the option of fifth year.
Yes.
Good luck there. Hopefully, he doesn't throw four picks in going into
Also
next
on the fifth
season.
year, I forgot to mention Dalton Kincaid. They picked up his fifth year option in Buffalo.
Yeah,
Um,
and
which
then
is which is good, but
yeah,
whatever.
that's good. But you got Dawson Knox. They paid him again.
Yep. Just to muddy the water.
Aaron Rodgers is still in
Uh
conversation with Mike McCarthy. He's going to be the quarterback of the Steelers for one more year.
yes, we both think that.
It's going to happen. I mean, if
And
is
we
there a
think the Steelers are going to win that division
yeah,
again.
they I mean, there's no reason why they shouldn't.
Yeah.
The Bengals got worse in defense by losing Trey Hendricks.
The Browns are
So
the Browns, and the
Browns are the
Ravens we think
Browns.
take a step back. So yeah.
Far step back. Um, so yeah, Aaron Rodgers go win that division again.
Yeah. What a what a circus. What a circus. All right, you ready to jump in our controversial topic here?
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into our systematic problems with the NFL that we have. I have a feeling Tommy and I are probably knowing we know each other pretty well. I have a feeling we're going to agree on 90 to 95% of what we're going to say on these things. We're going to have some disagreements, but a lot of the things that we're going to say, I do know is echoed a lot through the online internet community about these sorts of things, the fantasy community, the NFL community. We hear about a lot of this stuff in the media, and we'll point out where we're kind of against the grain. So I kind of have the stuff down in a little bit of bullet points. I'm not really going to go in any particular order other than like what we have it. So it might be slightly disconnected. Don't care. We're just going to go from topic to topic. So real quick, just at the top of the thing, uh, I made a note of this during the season, and it's about quarterbacks not being ready for the NFL and then all of a sudden being ready down the line. And there's a couple of quarterbacks, Philip Rivers, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning talked about this, that they're doing a bad job of developing quarterbacks. And maybe they could just simplify it down. Like, for example, Tommy, Joe Flacco rolls right into Cincinnati, crushes it because he just goes and hyper targets their best receiver who's running slant routes the whole time. If that can work, you don't have to get that much more advanced to develop young quarterbacks into better things, right?
Correct. You got to develop plays that work around their capabilities at the age of where they're at. So, throwing the ball deep down the field with not the greatest accuracy as a young quarterback going into the NFL because those corners' speed it's light and day compared to college. They're going to break on the ball a lot faster. They're going to be able to they're going to watch the ball and be able to watch the quarterback's eyes a lot easier than obviously a veteran quarterback in the NFL. So I do believe that 9 out of 10 times coaches just throw quarterbacks out there, and that 10% they work within when you have a smart coach, a system coach, they give them plays that works for the team that's going to make them succeed. And they practice that each and every single week. They don't need those big shiny plays that are going to get their 80 plus yard touchdowns. You know, the game is a game of inches, right? All you need is 10 yards to get a first down, right? Or sorry, 11 yards to get a first down,
10
usually.
yards. 10
Well,
yards.
technically you need that extra. If you get 10 yards, you didn't cross that, you didn't get that first down technically. So it's like 10.1 yards. Let's just say
Okay.
11 yards. I know the math is, it's going through your head a little bit. And you're like, wait, what is Tommy talking about? You technically to move forward, you need 11 yards.
I think you're four-dimensional chess this for no reason. But anyway, go
Yes.
ahead. We understand what you're
But
saying.
because if you get stuck on the goal line, right? You're 10 yards in to score a touchdown. If you get stuck on the goal line, you need that 11th yard to get through.
But the second you hit anyway, go ahead.
But
Ridiculous.
that's ridiculous. But anyway, I do believe that, like you said, coaches need to utilize and understand their players. I feel like sometimes they just look for the talent and they just don't really understand the players that they put out there nearly as much, and they just want them to do specific things. And sometimes that doesn't work to what their capabilities are. And that's where you start seeing quarterbacks fail.
I think Patrick Mahomes has ruined it for every other quarterback going forward. He's out of the box, the best quarterback in the NFL. Now I got it. He waited a year, but nobody saw him play. I mean, he didn't play the whole year, but like you can't be that good right out the box. He is an exception. He's in a class of his own. You end up with these other quarterbacks that end up getting, flamed out of whatever
Well,
their situation is, and
well,
then they
here's
turn into Sam Darnold. They
yeah, but
turn into Baker Mayfield.
here's the thing with that though. A quarterback that sits the bench, that sits behind a winning culture, and then goes out there and does it the next year because the team realized that he was ready to go. Um, you could kind of give it to the same situation as Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. Brett Favre was the reason why Aaron Rodgers didn't get on that field for 4 years.
For
He
years,
was
yeah.
basically the one that was just like, "Hey, I'm not retiring. I'm not retiring." And it was just the culture, it was the fan culture. And until they decided it's over, we got to move on because we drafted this guy. He's ready. He's been ready. We're going to put him out there and he's going to play. Um, with with Mahomes, you watch these players when they get drafted and they're sitting behind a winning culture, and you really only need a year out of that guy because what happens is a lot of times you have a guy that should be playing that's sitting behind, and he just basically turns into that second quarterback culture, like mentality. That's where he is, and it's really hard to get yourself out of that funk and to put yourself in a position to you know to win. Um, when you got a quarterback that comes in that doesn't have that mindset, I'm going to learn, I want to get out there, and then they get out there, or they immediately go out there, it's a failure, right? So like they have to want to learn, they have to want to sit behind that and see the winning culture actually continue. If you're not in a winning culture, you're just going to continue to do the same thing over and over again.
I got it, but you can't have the gigantic vast majority of these veteran quarterbacks, good veteran quarterbacks over the course of time, screaming from every single podcast, from every single interview that the NFL is doing a bad job of developing young quarterbacks, and there not be some fire there. There's too much smoke. And so you can't, and so like we see it after the fact with guys like Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield, where it works after the fact, years after when they've had time to go to go, like you said, like that they go to a winning culture, they learn, they see what's going on there. And so this idea, I partially blame the fans because you end up drafting a quarterback and then the fans are like start shouting for him to go in 6 games in, demanding that he play and then getting very, very agitated so quickly when it doesn't go well. Meanwhile, you got a guy like Cam Ward, trials and tribulations throughout the first 10 games, and then he starts to look pretty good towards the end of the year because he had a little bit time to get his feet from under him. And then they go and fire the head coach. Like I mean, now it's disconnected, it's disjointed. Hopefully he's the kind of player that's just going to rise above that kind of stuff. Every once in a while you get these guys from out of nowhere, like Jaden Daniels has a really great rookie season, and then it turns into something, and then hopefully it doesn't flame out for the rest of his career. Like the point I'm
A
making
lot of it
is,
is it's the maturity level too with some of these players.
well, you're right, and everybody's an individual, everybody's different, but do you think the fans have the capacity to have a quarterback be drafted and then wait a little while they develop before they become a good quarterback? And I don't think that we have that patience anymore.
I don't think we do because of the social media aspect. A lot of it is, when you have the media, let's just put it that, from this perspective, obviously the media wasn't as intense as it was when Patrick Mahomes was sitting behind, what you call it, Smith back there.
Right.
Um, the media wasn't that intense. The media definitely wasn't that intense back then, maybe in Green Bay, but the media wasn't that intense back then with Aaron Rodgers sitting behind Brett Favre. Um, Nowadays, it's just the culture. There's too much chatter. There's too much talk. There's too many people putting their minds out there, and it's influencing sometimes the wrong direction. And one of those, unfortunately, here we are doing a podcast where we're influencing people to, what we believe is the correct way. And we'll put stuff, pen to paper with it. And we'll make a point with it. Many people won't. Many people won't get that down and get their hands dirty with it. They'll just say a couple things and then they'll move on from it. And then that will go that will go viral. Right. So like the biggest thing is it's the social media aspect of things these days that really influences teams and culture to speed up the process, and that is really bad for a career. Granted, these guys are still making millions of dollars, but it's
Well,
hard. It's bad for a career.
we have to be consistent in what we say then, because it's why I personally have a really, really, really long leash for rookie quarterbacks, provided that their attitude is in the right place. The
Correct.
guys we could bring it up because it's like Cam Ward. Like we really loved Cam Ward, really good kid. Like, and he seemed like he was saying the right things, working really hard, and eventually it started to work out for him. But he did not look good for 10 straight games. But that's to be expected. That's
Correct.
to be expected. Even second year guys trying to figure out. I mean, Trevor Lawrence didn't have an amazing year really until this past year. Was it year 5? So I feel like we need to have a little bit of a longer leash and not just cast aspersions on who a guy is or whatever. Give it a little bit more time. Um, and maybe it ends up turning into something. Now, again, like we said, provided the attitude and the individual is right. There's guys we had a conversation about in the offseason that might not apply to. So it matters individually who we're talking about. So there's just something to keep in mind. I recognize that what we're saying is going to fall on deaf ears for a lot of people because they have no patience for anything. So whatever. God bless social media. Speaking of evaluations and stuff, another topic I would just wanted to get into real quick is bad evaluations coming out of the NFL draft. And I just want to say that it's such a pet peeve of mine of it's an over emphasis on 40-yard times and sort of combine statistics. And my perfect example of this is Puka Nacua. Um, Puka, in my opinion, is the best wide receiver in the NFL, dominating player, and absolutely was a washout at the NFL Combine. Slow according to their metrics, not the best, blah, 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 blah. And then you get him on the field, he's outrunning everybody, he's bullying everybody, etc. So clearly there's something there. Maybe we should stop overemphasizing what's in the NFL Combine and stop drafting guys like Henry Ruggs and Xavier Worthy in the first round, maybe.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think that, Puka is a product of Stafford.
He's just one
No,
example.
yeah, but no Stafford, no Puka. So
Okay. Well, I mean, by that logic, you could say, I mean, Larry Fitzgerald had some bad years because he had, Yo-Yo A and Yo-Yo B throwing him the
Larry
ball.
Fitzgerald was always a nice wide receiver, year in, year out. Same
No, he
thing.
had bad years.
He's basically he's an older version of DeAndre Hopkins.
He had his 850 yard, 7 touchdown years with, random guy, Glennon or whoever else was there throwing him the ball, etc. So no, I will not cast aspersions there. But a great example here of this guy that's applying it, DK Metcalf. Could you think of a better guy who's more of a combine guy, the physical freak or whatever, and just is not the guy who you would want? He's like not that dominating of a receiver. You know what I mean? Like he
It
just
just
isn't.
depends on when he wants to be dominant. That's the thing, right? That's the diva-ish element right there. And yeah, DK, I'm calling you a diva. Sorry. You punch a guy with blue hair. Come on, man. Uh, you know, he's a great talent. He's a fantastic talent. He's an unbelievable route runner. He is a speedy big guy, and that's an anomaly in the NFL. The problem is he takes off he takes off plays sometimes, and he slows down. Like you saw it last year. Aaron Rodgers threw him a deep ball. He knew where he had to be, and he just basically slowed down. He didn't get there, or he got there, but he didn't get up and make that big play, to get it down the field. Know what Aaron Rodgers does after that? He looks the other way. He goes to other people to get him down the field.
But at some point, you cannot just say, "Oh, it's because he didn't want it." At some point, the critique needs to go in and be like, "It's just not him." If that's what he is for the last 5 years or 6 years, however long is the NFL, then that's who he is as a player. That's who he is. He's just not going to do that. you
But
know?
no, but that's not the case though, because he's had some consistent years. He had two consistent years. His rookie and his second year were very good years.
Very good, but not the dominating. Like you can't be the best physical specimen, best combine guy ever, and then not be the best receiver in the NFL. Like it's just what I'm saying is that's an incongruency that we're putting too much of an emphasis on what you look like or what your combine stats are at that point. Like you can't, you just can't, you know?
No, you can't. But the thing is, he's still a great talent, man. I can't put it past him. And I do think that the combine's a little aggressive with obviously the bench press thing, and like if you could bench press 45 times 225, congratulations. But does that mean you could pass block? No.
Maybe not.
That means you
Right.
that means you could just press 40, 225 45 times and just by laying on your back. So
Yeah, we do have a problem with it, a little bit of disagreements. Matt Golden falls in this category of combine warrior and you know, like not that good on the field.
I mean,
So
Rich Eisen runs the 40 every single year. He does not get faster.
no, he doesn't. And his suit doesn't fit any either when he
And
does
it
it.
keeps getting tighter.
I wanted to touch on a quick thing that I think you and I kind of touched on this during the season. I have a major problem with the whole tanking for the number one pick thing.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, there's an extremely easy fix to this, one that does not involve using the lottery system. Instead of it making who finishes the year with the worst record, it's who is the first to be eliminated from the playoffs. Because say what you want about the NFL, even teams that you kind of know are going to be eliminated at some point, until they're mathematically eliminated, they're still trying. They really are still trying, unless your name is the New York Jets. So by changing that, you at least don't make, you know, games that you active like the part that I hate is not
I
really
mean, the problem I have with that is that literally you're gonna have a team that basically just tanks it for the first 10 games is 0 and 10, and then
how's that any different than it is now? Like teams doing that crap.
but how is your specific way, route of that any different?
Because they're not. Teams don't do that and teams don't tank until they're eliminated, really. In reality. We could joke about the Jets all we want.
So
But
you
they
so
don't.
is that you perceive.
Well, let me put it to you this way. The biggest problem that I have really isn't with the teams. It's with the fans. Anytime a team does any, sometimes it doesn't even have to be that they go and win a game, but the fact that they're like even remotely attempting to try to win a game, they're immediately criticizing them, be like, they shouldn't even be trying to win this game. In fact, they should be sitting their quarterback. They should be sitting their running back. They should be throwing out my grandmother at defense. Like that's how the fans sound.
I
You
think,
realize that, right?
yeah, no, I get it. I think the best way to make this happen is the NBA does a decent job about this, but I do think that the NBA
I,
has too
I
many.
I
They
don't think
do.
they do a good job at this.
I think they do. I think the lottery,
I
where they
think it's
basically,
awful.
I
I think
think
it's
that's a great thing. Instead of just being the worst team with the worst stats and all that stuff, basically you instead of I think the ball system should just be one singular ball that basically bounces around, not having, for the worst team you have 10 balls, the other team you have 5 balls, like to get the first like I think that's a little ridiculous. But I think it just be one solo ball for the top 10 worst teams below a certain record. You basically can't have more than 5 wins. So if you eclipse 5 wins, you don't get into that lottery, and then basically from there, those 3 or 4 teams get the first round pick, and then whoever it just gets laddered up like
But
that.
this doesn't solve tanking. We want to. There has to be a system in place where teams can still be motivated to play,
How about
even though they're
this?
eliminated.
How about this? If a team tanks, the owner gets fired. The owner has to sell the team.
How do they? How can you prove, like in the court of law, that a team is tanking?
Not managing your salary to max it out completely.
But this is not. You can't prove anything
So
like on the letter
would
of the
would
law.
would would a good owner and GM pay, let's just say, Geno Smith $190 million for 4 years?
They're not paying him that. The
I
Raiders are
know,
paying his salary.
I understand,
Yeah.
but would a good team do that just to make salary for the year?
No, but this is like you can't
Would it, or
prove that.
would a team do that just to throw away money like that?
I got it. We're talking about public
I
opinion
mean, it
versus
could
like
be a donation. You look at a donation and it's a write-off for that owner.
I think whatever we could have a disagreement. I think my system at least gives teams the opportunity to be like, well, we're the first to be eliminated. We got the number one pick. Screw it. We'll just continue to play hard. Whatever. We win, we win, we lose, we lose. Because that way it doesn't make this, this fake thing where, oh my God, every single game we have to lose, we have to lose, we have to lose. Like it ruins the integrity of the game. We've gotten to a point, you realize that where it's like teams that might not even be eliminated, but where it's like getting close at the end of the season where it might be borderline. There are members of the media and members and fandom that's like, well, at best, we're going to get a number 7 wild card slot. Screw it, just tank. Like it's just like, and then they get angry and then they get everybody on board. And like it ruins the game, you know? Like
I
there's
think there's a lot of things that ruin the game. I think that's just one of the things. I think, some of the calls actually are the bigger aspect that ruins the game.
well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. One thing I just wanted to make a corollary on this point is so just to mention about everything we were just talking about, bad evaluations at the draft and then the combine or whatever. Everybody's obsessed with tanking for a better pick and a better pick and this and that. Very, very, very seldom is it where it's like, these slam dunk picks that that you're trying to get, it's going to turn into something. Guys end up being good from different other parts in the draft that don't necessarily like what difference does it make to you if you're the sixth pick versus the 12th pick? If you really wanted a guy who was in that six range, then you make a trade and you go get it, or you don't. Things never work out the way that teams think that they do, that they're obsessed with getting this. And for fans to be like, no, we have to get the third pick instead of the second pick because of this. The people just don't know what they're talking about when it comes to this. So I know you and I agree on that crap, but whatever. I think a lot of this is we have a problem with fans, much 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 more sometimes with this. But let's talk about this one's going to be fun. Some rules in the NFL that currently exist that maybe we would like to be changed. I would love for you to kick this off. I know you have a few we've talked about.
Yes. The dynamic football, dynamic kickoff needs to be back to a regular kickoff.
I know you hated that when they changed it.
Like, no, but I think the problem I have with it is they're like, oh, it's player safety and all that stuff. I get it. Okay, I understand. So you're letting the college kids still do it. You're letting high school kids still do it. You're letting Pop Warner
Right.
kids still do it. Like,
I wanted to ask you that. Do you take them seriously at all when they say it's about player safety?
no,
Right.
it's just to
So then why did
change.
they do it?
It's to potentially give the opportunity to run the ball back and to score more points.
I think why they did it was to, in reality, I get it. This isn't going to go over well with the public. I don't care. The reason that they did it was they said it was for player safety, knowing it doesn't affect player safety, but they did it to check the box after that concussion lawsuit. It was like, oh, yep, look what we did. Like and that was the lowest hanging fruit because they know that
But
the casual fan doesn't really care about special teams
but like I said, why is the NCAA still allowing a regular kickoff?
because they didn't get a concussion lawsuit.
So when you go to the NFL where you're being paid millions of dollars, you're gonna basically now do a dynamic kickoff. The kickoff is the biggest
I mean,
part of football. It's the when you watch the Super Bowl, when you watch the Super Bowl and the kickoff happens, now you're seeing the boxes that are just on the on the field that they're showing you where the kicker has to kick it between and like that's not like let's just get to the first drive. It's so stupid.
right, but it's the larger conspiracy there is that it's another line in the sand of them trying to get rid of kickoffs altogether, basically. The teams automatically start on the 20 or whatever it is, the 25 or something.
I don't know if it
I don't
calls
know if
football
I don't know if
anymore.
it's ever going to happen. Yeah, for that reason,
Yeah.
you've said
That that's
we've said that.
that's culture right there.
Any other rule change? I have a few. Any other rule changes hit your fancy?
Well, I mean, this is not really rule changes, but just the rule book in itself. I know this is a penalty, non-penalty kind of thing, but it kind of falls in line with one another. Um, I do believe that the biggest thing that I have a problem with is it happens in every single sport. There's a rule book for a reason, right? Nowadays, and everybody and their mothers will agree with me with this. When you start seeing NBA players do a Euro step and then another Euro step, they don't call a travel and they just score points and they move on to the next. Everybody and their mothers are sitting there in the stands or even on TV. Sometimes even the announcers going, "Oh, it was a travel." Oh, but he scored. Doesn't matter. There's zero reflection on that.
Right, they stopped caring about traveling 20
But
years ago. Yeah.
but if it was a rookie, they would call it, right? My big problem is the rules have to be consistent with all players. You can't be a NFL quarterback taking massive hits and then the same massive hit gets on Patrick Mahomes or these other prestigious quarterbacks and a flag is thrown for excessive roughness or whatever they're going to call. You can't do that. It has to be consistent. The
Uh,
rules are the rules for a reason.
I have a rebuttal to that, and it's not that I actually believe this, but I know this is what the internet at large would say about that. I'll make the basketball analogy. Uh, if a prominent player, a well-known player, everybody who knows who he is, if he's got the basketball and he runs in, and there's a little bit of contact inside, and he misses the layup, it's going to be called a foul. And the reason it's going to be called a foul, the logic is this is so good of a player, it's so well known of a player, it had to have been a foul, or else he wouldn't have missed the basket. And that's the logic behind it of he would have made it, so therefore it was a foul. Again, I'm regurgitating stuff that's widely said on the internet. This is not my opinion. The same could be applied to like other stuff from, like different quarterbacks that we could mention. Like it had to have been pass interference. Otherwise, it would have been an interception. Therefore, it had to have been pass interference because this quarterback threw the ball. Not saying I agree with that stuff. I'm saying this is what those people would say. What would your
Uh,
rebuttal be to that?
I just people miss shots sometimes. Not
Right,
not everybody
right.
not everybody makes
Nobody's perfect.
100%. Nobody's perfect. So I don't agree with that.
Right,
I
I agree.
understand the logic, but I don't agree with that. Nobody makes 100% of their shots, right?
You miss
Um,
100% of the shots that you have to take.
that as well too. I will say the MLB is doing a fantastic job because what they're doing is they're watching. So if there's somebody at the box, basically at the plate, and they call and the ump calls a strike, the batter can basically tap their helmet and say check it out, and they'll look at the tape and they'll overturn eight umpires call.
Yes.
That's a call, right? So it should be in a sense. I do believe there should be a period of time, in the NFL where if because the NFL knows that their referees are terrible.
Right.
The NFL should have this system where when they basically challenge a play, it should be challenge plays on bad calls as well too. Please go look at the tape. That was not a pass interference. Please look at the tape. That was not an offensive pass interference, whatever it was, or that was an offensive pass interference. We get the ball back, not an interception. Things like that. That has to be an opportunity with that.
So, um, the counter to that, I've heard this said a little bit. Like Rich Eisen and some other members of the media were talking about this. In in a vacuum, there's nothing wrong with what you're saying. I agree with it 100%. Here's the problem: you got to remember timing. There is a level of like this game has to get done within a certain amount of time. Think about you always got to take the slippery slope argument. Think about how that would actually go. You can't have every single Gots and Ghoul being reviewed and then double checked 19 different ways before the next thing goes. Think about that. There's way more moving pieces in the NFL than there is in the MLB. Like in the MLB, 9 times out of 10, it's a ball that hits over the plate and the catcher catches it. Very rarely is there actually action. But in the NFL, there's a play every single play. There's 70 of them every single game.
No, I
So
understand that, but if you if you if
it's a
you
bad
hold
precedent.
it's a bad precedent, but if you just like how there's the challenge rules, if you just keep it to a specific number, right? If you win two challenges, you get the third.
But we
The
we
co
saw we saw this though. They were able to challenge pass interference calls for 1 year, and it did not go well.
uh,
You know,
but I don't know. I think it has to be a universal thing, a universal penalty call where especially in big games, that's not going to prolong a game exponentially.
here's something we can agree with. They need to have better refs, and they need to have more refs than what they have. Not replacements. They need to have professionally high paid. This is what they do refs, and
Well, well,
more of
yeah,
them per game.
because majority of these refs, I mean, it's just a part-time gig. It's a seasonal thing. There
Right.
a lot of these guys are business owners, entrepreneurs, or lawyers. Like that's what they are.
Right. But you need to have really what you should have for every single game is 20 gene sterators on the field at any given time. That's what you need, you
Yeah, I
know?
mean, you need to have these people that are actually physically watching the game. There should be somebody, a referee manager in the box watching every single play by play with two other people, analyzing it. The NFL makes billions of dollars. You can hire two to three people watching these games in the box and then basically managing the game from there, and then having the people on the field manage the game there as well too.
I got it.
It's
As long as they don't, as long as the flow of the game isn't broken up, whatever they could do to improve that.
correct.
One rule, one literally on this topic, one thing I wanted to propose was, and I would love it if it's written down in the NFL rulebook, although I know it's never going to be, that a penalty is not called if it doesn't affect the outcome of that play. So if it, like the Ken Walker play in the Super Bowl that he goes and runs for a touchdown, and then there was like some holding on the other side of the field or whatever it was, like I mean, come on, like we're gonna call that back because of that, or a quarterback overthrows a receiver by 30 yards, but there was a defensive holding for half a second on a thing like that. That was uncatchable. That's not, you don't get to call that. And then they get a new set of downs on that kind of thing. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I like that would be something that would take a little bit more interpretation from, in the referees. But again, this is what we're paying them for. It's interpretation of the rules. One thing that we joke about all the time, Tommy, is right. Like there's holding on every offensive play. And we say that sort of like as a tongue-in-cheek thing, having played football ourselves. Obviously, there's not holding on every single player, every single thing, but to some degree, there's gray area there, right? So who is there to interpret that gray area? And it has to be interpreted the same way every single time, all the time. By definition, you're leaving things up to human error now,
You know
right?
what I should know what I really believe? I think NFL referees should be ex-NFL players that have zero influence on specific teams. An NFL referee should, say like if, Taylor Lewan comes out and he wants to be an NFL referee, he's going to manage the line of scrimmage. He's going to watch the line of scrimmage and call penalties. You're going to have players that played the game that understand blocking patterns, everything like that. They're going to be able the ones that make those calls. I think when you have these 60, 70, 80-year-old guys running down the field, they don't know what the F they're watching. You might have almost had to edit that.
Right. But I could make the argument as maybe some of these guys would have an agenda or at the very least a conflict of interest. Like if Jonathan Ogden is calling, the plays, he might subconsciously be very offensive line sided in the way that he calls things versus, defensive line sided. I'm not saying he would be. I'm just saying that's an example, you know?
Yeah, but the thing is you like for example, like I said, I feel like how many for a running back, for a quarterback, you can basically there's not many. You only need two eyes to watch those two players, right? So like somebody could watch that, somebody could watch the offensive line, somebody could watch the defensive line, somebody could watch the defensive line and the linebacking basically just collides together. So like you have let's just say seven people on the field. You have a line judge. But you have six people that are actually physically watching the game
I still don't think that's enough personally, but,
on the field, but then you have other people in the box watching.
I suppose, but the
They
plays,
literally already have this happening right now. They just need to basically organize the organization to be consistent.
Right, but remember, the way that it's constructed right now is that after a play, if there has been a flag, the people in the booth have the ability to tell the refs to pick up a flag. They do not have the ability to do the other way around, to be like, "Hey, listen, there was a hands to the face here. You better call a penalty." They can't do that. So right now it's not in the same way of that the manner in which that's handled. I don't know. Maybe they have a ref for every single player on offense. That's all they do is watch. My job is to watch the left guard. My job is to watch the Z receiver every single play or something. Like, and then on defense they have the same thing. I don't know. But
I mean,
where
having that's a little, but that's a little overkill. Having 22 refs basically watching.
but how do you I don't see how you improve this without ruining the flow of the game. You know how it is. Like a play will go by, and then some yo-yo on social media will have scrutinized that play, post something up that looks like semi like, hey, this should have been called a penalty, and then be like, say the refs are favoring X team that wears red, and then we all have to believe it because the refs didn't call it that. But maybe it's just like that kind of thing happens all the time, right? Like I don't know how you fix that without ruining the flow of the game. Like, do you have a better idea? That's a faster way to do it.
No, I mean, I don't think, like I said, I think if you just manage it where you have those three calls and everything, you could basically throw a flag for anything, then that's on the coach, and it doesn't slow down the flow of the game because you're limited to your calls. So you're not just going to throw out BS. You're going to wait, and if it's something that's heavy, that's basically, if you're because you and I both know, and so does the rest of everybody out there. There's going to be players, there's going to be Tom Brady's. There's going to be Patrick Mahomes. There's going to be these people that basically read the field. They can see what's happening down the field, and they know that they're going to you're going against a rookie corner, and the rookie corner is most likely going to try to catch up and hold, throw the
Right.
ball 80 yards down the field, and guess what? You just got an 80-yard play when the guy didn't even catch the ball because he's going to call pass. They're going to throw pass interference.
Right, but maybe in that case, he would have caught the ball or had a shot at catching the ball if it wasn't a pass interference. I'm not going to criticize that.
But
And
what I'm
also,
saying, but what I'm saying is, having that and understanding these, like sometimes these ticky tack calls can be overturned because maybe that's not a call that should have been called. Maybe that's just normal play. Like that's fair game. If you look back at the tape, maybe the offensive player was pushing off a little bit and the defensive player was pushing off, so that kind of that neutralizes it.
right, but
Then it
th
doesn't
th
turn into an 80-yard positive play.
this is where I find it that this is where I think it gets complicated because there are plays that you or even me, we might call ticky tacky that a lot of other people would call, no, it's blatant and it's this. The problem is that everybody's a human being and they have different interpretations. But
Uh,
case in point, the play in the Bills Broncos game that we were so focused on, the interception that you said no, the offender caught it when I'm saying, in my opinion, it was an interception. We both have completely different things, and you're angry at them because they interpret it that way. I'm openly saying I think it was an interception. So how can you and I be at odds, but then we're expecting the refs to have called it? You know what I'm saying? You can't say both things.
because I still don't understand how you think that was an interception. You
And
must have not looked at it every single angle.
I could prove it to you right now. Okay. You know the play that it's one of Al Michaels' funny calls. He did what? The Antonio Freeman catch where he was on the ground, it was bouncing around on his back. You know the play I'm talking about,
Hmm.
right? Okay. You would say Antonio Freeman didn't actually catch that ball until after he had rolled into it and then caught it on his way from in the kneeling position to standing up. Like while it was bouncing around on his back, you wouldn't say it was a catch, right?
Well, it can't be because he didn't have possession, but it also didn't hit the ground.
Right, it didn't hit the ground, but he didn't have possession, right?
Correct.
Okay. I am saying that in a weird way that applies here because I don't think that the offender ever really had full possession of the ball.
I mean, okay.
Right. Right.
I still don't agree because I do believe he had possession before he hit the ground. And if it wasn't for the bounce on the ground, it was the perfect bounce. He hit his back and he released the ball slightly, and the defender just basically tugged it away. He
But
was, but his hands were on the ball. His basically it was hands on his body. He was downed by contact. It was a catch.
at the point of which he hit the ground, he did not have full possession because the defender was ripping it out. So therefore, he never had full possession of the ball.
No,
That's
that's
but
not
that's
true.
the point. Here's the major point. You and I could disagree, but is so therefore you and I are disagreeing. How can we expect the ref to please everybody? There's no way that would have happened. So I'm saying a play like this is, there's debate about it. Or you and I might say that a play is ticky-tacky or this thing or that thing. You're going to have a whole swath of people who disagree the other direction, you know? So I'm like, very, very, very rarely is the entire country unanimously in favor of something. You know what I mean? But we notice those things and we'd like those things to be changed. But how often does that happen?
I mean, it's never going to happen. I'm just saying but calls have to be calls and consistent calls for a reason.
Yeah, but we could name the calls that like the NFC Championship game where it was a pass interference on the Saints player from the Rams, propelling the Rams into the Super Bowl in 2019 or whatever it was. I could say that one we were all in unanimous agreement that was baloney. That shouldn't have happened.
Correct.
But right. So I just we're in agreement that the refs should be better. I just like when you're like talking about there needs to be a review system to make sure that questionable calls are made better, right? That's what you're saying.
That's exactly what I said from the beginning. That's all I care about is making it a fair process. Doesn't matter if you're a rookie, doesn't matter if you're a veteran, doesn't matter if you've been in the league for 5 years, doesn't matter. Calls should be calls for a reason.
I just don't know how they would do that in a very quick manner. I don't. And that's why it's like the ones that
I
are the
do. Read the rule book. That's it.
all right, well then that by that logic, then we're all in agreement. We should just get better refs. But you know,
Yes.
well, we could talk about that one all day long. So Um, let's switch gears a little bit. One thing that you and I were kind of lamenting. Let's talk about the streaming service situation from the NFL. This one's gonna it's such a head it's such a headache, this thing. So do you think we're headed to a point where every single game is gonna be required to have a completely separate thing that you have to pay for every single month to do it? Like, is that going to be the eventual outcome of this
I
situation?
mean, right now it's YouTube TV. If you don't have YouTube TV, you cannot watch NFL, unless you have a black box that basically just allows you to, you know, jailbreak everything.
Well, I think what's been happening is the success of NFL Red Zone has put the big companies on their heels and be like, a lot of people are just not even bothering watching the game. They're just watching Red Zone because it's better. Red Zone is better because y'all just shove a beer commercial every 3 seconds inside the football games. That's why it's better. And so now NFL Red Zone's been killing them for however long. Now they're like, you know what? We need to fix this. And now they're forcing the games to be streaming. And so therefore, if they're streaming, they cannot be on Red Zone. And now they had to stick Red Zone into Disney, and now even Red Zone has has commercials now. So I'm just wondering how far this actually goes.
Um, well, I will say that I mean, far it goes. I mean, they have different contracts every I think 3 to 4 years. It's going to keep bouncing around. So like maybe in 2 years it's going to be on uh Disney Plus, and then you need the ESPN. Like it what really ticks me off is let me put it from this because I know it's going to go this route and it's really going to piss a lot of people off. ESPN, right? So ESPN Ultimate or whatever it is, you have the bundle of Hulu, Disney Plus, and ESPN is not good enough. You have to have the bundle of Hulu plus live TV, Disney Plus plus also ESPN Unlimited. Then you need to buy MLB, like for like MLB, you have to buy their year service thing, right? So you have to have that plus that to get that. That's ridiculous. Like that's unbelievable. And I guarantee you when ESPN basically takes on, because YouTube TV has it, I think, for another 1 or 2 years. After that, it's going to ESPN because Disney's going to take it over. And you're going to have to pay for all of those services. You're going to have to pay the 129 plus also on top of that, you're going to have to pay the $400 a year for 4 months to watch NFL football.
I mean, which is unbelievable, which is unbelievable. I mean,
But the craziest, this is. I mean, $400 a year is. I have no problem paying that. But the MLB is only $160 for the year, and they have 182 games. I could watch the Mets all day long, right?
Right.
For
But
100,
can you watch every other game?
I could watch every single game.
You can watch every single game for $160 a year.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
But the NFL, and that you're talking
That's a,
about what, 8 months worth of baseball? The NFL is only 3.5, 4 months.
right. Right. And there's
And then
currently like
everything else is nationally televised.
if I wanted to watch every single game of the NFL, uh what what do I buy right now?
I mean,
I have to buy 38 things. Right.
yeah, you have to buy this and then you have to buy that to get that.
Right. And then I had to have Netflix for this game and then Amazon for this game and then you know, throw in Apple TV is going to have some stuff and then we're going to get foreign games. And then pretty soon we're going to have an international we're going to have a permanent international team at some point. That's going to
Yeah,
have
and
its own
that's going to be
rights.
on Fubu TV.
So I'm just like, it's only gonna, honestly, the way I read this is only gonna get worse. It's only gonna get worse. And I thought that the saving grace for all this was going to be red zone. However, if more
Red
and more,
Zone only happens on Sundays.
I know, but like if more and more teams are going to force to have standalone games, then that's less and less games for red zone. And then red zone is just going to be at some point, it's just, throw in your Jets Browns game. And then like you know, three other games. And then that's what's on red zone because every other game is in some sort of a standalone position. I
Mm.
mean, I actually looked it up because remember we had such a problem with why are they doing these multiple games on Monday Night Football, right?
Yeah.
One of the reasons they were doing it is so that they wanted, like, they didn't want an extra game on red zone. They did not like, they wanted that revenue to be, I want a standalone game. I don't want people watching red zone, whatever that particular cable company, Fox, NBC, ABC, CBS, whatever it is. Think of like, you got to imagine how greedy they are. So it's only going to go downhill. We'll see how long Red Zone could save me from this mess, but I'm not. There's a limit to how much I'm willing to pay for all this stuff. $400 a year for just to watch, 3 or 4 months of football. That's a hard sell for people.
I mean, I look at it from this perspective. Where I live 2 hours from Jacksonville. I live 4 hours from Atlanta, 4 hours from what's it called, Charlotte. So
Uh,
I could go to,
11 hours from New York,
12 hours from New York.
12 hours from New York.
But the thing is, like, if I go to one of those games, I'm basically spending $300-400 for one game. I mean, I'd rather buy all the games and watch them from the comfort of my home. Or if it's a nice day outside, I'll sit outside and watch the games. Or if
Right.
I want to watch it on the road, I could watch it like right here on the computer. You could watch it anywhere you want. Um,
Right.
it's worth it for
Purchase our
me.
product by Tom Lang.
Yes, purchase the NFL. NFL.
Right.
Maybe we'll get sponsored by the NFL so we can get it for free. But
I think most people would agree with you, but most people like their decision to go to a game is erroneous to this. It's irrelevant. This argument is irrelevant to that. They're going to be watching football and go to football games if they
yeah,
choose to do so.
but
So
but I'm just saying for like and I've talked to a lot of people about this. People that just don't decide to go to games, they rather just watch for the comfort of their home. They rather pay the $400 to watch whatever they want to watch.
no, that's a fair point. Yeah. So yeah, you and I are in agreement. This is only going to get worse from here.
It's going to be $500, and then next year it's going to be $600, and then sooner before you know it, you're going to be having to pay to watch the Super Bowl on
Right. Like a pay-per-view.
yeah.
Right. But that's the thing though. Let's say it's $500. It would be one thing if it's like, hey, pay us $500. Now you have access to everything. And then you're just done. But right now it's 19 different services across this and this and this and this. And then you have it. And then like that's where it's off the deep end. So it's
hmm
like to your point, it's not the same as MLB. You have 100 and whatever you said, $160. You pay to MLB network, right? And then
yeah, I haven't done it this year, but
or
yes,
whatever
you
it
you
is.
yeah, no, what it is you have to buy ESPN Unlimited, not ESPN plus the like with the
Right.
bundle. ESPN Unlimited. So you have to upgrade that. So it's like $45 a month. Then you have to buy the the MLB package.
It's funny. The streaming services, they start to sound like insurance companies. ESPN Unlimited, ESPN Plus, ESPN Advantage, ESPN.
Where your deductibles are actually higher than your premiums.
So it's only going to get worse. So yeah, sorry guys, good luck. All right, so let's close our thing with probably the most impactful little discussion here. So we kind of touched on this last week when we were talking a little bit about tight ends, and what brought it up was the whole JSN discussion. And it made me laugh when on the company that we just named, ESPN, they had a little discussion about, how dare the Cowboys franchise tag George Pickens and how dare they not pay him. And therefore, George Pickens is going to be completely motivated to earn all this money, yada,
I mean,
yada,
he's
right?
making a lot of money for 1 year though.
Right, right, right. But the fact that he's not being paid long term, he's motivated to go get that contract. Whereas, and then the next segment, they had a discussion about JSN, like, JSN now, he has just been paid all this money. He's been paid a long-term contract, and now he's motivated to help his team. That's why I was saying, like, how could you say, how could you not laugh and say completely both things? You can't. You have to pick one. So I know that the way that we landed on it last week when we talked about this, I would love you to expound on it because I kind of agreed with your overarching opinion. So is it better for players to be paid or not paid? How much does it depend on the player? And should every single contract be based on incentives with a reduction in guaranteed contracts?
I think, so the guaranteed really comes in play with, agents basically trying to get paid. I think that's the biggest thing. Um, the way I think that players need to get paid, and who am I to say this, but I just feel like we've seen so much, through the years, we've seen so much downfall from people getting paid and just basically walking away from the game pretty much mentally. Still being out there, but not being the same player. It happens way too much. I really wish, and I really hope that the NFL hears me here. A lot of coaches hear me here as well too, which
Right.
I highly doubt because
They're
but whatever.
listening. They're listening
They are
intently.
listening. They are listening. Guys, listen.
They're downloading this on Apple Podcast. Go ahead.
Yes, they all are. Let's just say, let's take for instance, let's I want to name like a big contract. So like,
Well, JSN, that's the one that brought up the
all right,
discussion last week.
JSN contract.
Yeah. Yeah. Why you bring that up? Just to mention to everybody, like that's
So
essentially what brought this up when we talked
okay.
about it last week. Yeah.
So JSN, he signed a 4 year, $168.6 million contract, includes $120 million guaranteed over through 2031 season. Um, the deal averages to 42.15 million per year. So 120 million guaranteed. All right. So 120 million guaranteed, that means that leaves $48 million not guaranteed.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Why wouldn't you just say, hey, we're going to give you $60 million guaranteed? All right. And it was still a lot of money. $60 million guaranteed, but the rest of it is incentive pay.
Oh, sorry,
Right.
I'm not signing it.
Not signing it. Okay. Well, let's just make it into like this is the rules of engagement with the NFL. New rules of engagement.
Right.
Okay, so you could go play flag football for the UFC team if you would like to do that, where you could sign a contract and here we go. You got it's the mentality. That's the problem. These days everybody's out there to get their NIL deals, in college. Now they're getting paid in college, then they're going to the NFL. Some players are actually getting more than the league minimum, so they're not leaving college, right? They get the NFL, they're trying to get that big contract. And at that point, you don't know what's going to happen, right? I really think that these guaranteed pays have to be at half of it and the rest of it has to be incentivized. If you don't make it incentivized, there is no, and I'm talking about maybe less than 50% of these people that are signing these contracts. But if it was a universal thing where everybody had to go out there and provide and produce and had to, to earn their keep, it would make the game a lot greater. I do believe that it would keep the consistency with some of these players, have them highly motivated to basically that would solve tanking as well too, wanting to win. Go out there and basically produce to
And
provide for
wanting
your
to hit those
family.
stat milestones, like you have to hit
100%.
900 yards this year or whatever. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, if I was in, JSN or one of these, if I would had the talent as one of these guys, mentality wise, my goal would, if I wanted to get to the NFL, that was my goal to get to the NFL, then to get paid, right? And then to continue my career to win a Super Bowl. That should be everybody's mentality that's in the NFL. Everybody that's on that roster, that 52-man roster, should want to win a Super Bowl. That should be the optimal goal. You
Right.
you
But you know,
grew
a
up.
lot of them, that's not their goal. A lot of them, it's all about creating their brand and being popular on social media and being yada yada yada. You know
There's
that.
other ways to do that.
Okay.
There's other ways to do that. I mean, then step away from the game and go be a professional boxer. Go do that stuff. Like whatever. Get
Right.
on the field. You get on the field. You trained your entire life. Some of these kids, like you see some of these pitchers, and they're 5 years old holding a football. Like their parents been training them since they're 5 years old to play football, and
Right.
now you got there.
Right. But like you talking to me about it is not going to change the way that their mindset is. But one of the things that you said, like, okay, the mindset has to be different. That's not going to change. But you said like if the
It's
NFL,
a culture,
their
right?
way of doing business,
Yes. If
they've already established that they're going to be making this mistake over and over and over again.
and again, it's a business problem that they're creating for themselves. It's a they're just throwing money away. If you want to throw money away, here, just throw me $100,000. I'm cool with that, right?
Can I ask you something that a counter would be, and this one will hit close to home. A couple years ago, when the Giants were negotiating with Saquon Barkley, okay, and Saquon Barkley wanted more money and he wanted more guaranteed money, and they ultimately let him go because they couldn't come to an agreement. And then he goes to the Eagles, crushes it, they go win a Super Bowl, which hurt. I know it hurt you, it hurt them, and it was bad.
No, the Giants sucked anyway at that point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, by your logic, they should not have given him more money. They should not have given him the guaranteed contract because God knows that he might not have performed, right? According to what you're saying.
Correct. And from my perspective, Saquon Barkley had a couple of years where he didn't play full seasons. So, he in a sense he was an injury prone guy, but he was basically an injury prone because he was the one man roster. He was the only guy on that roster that was actually able to produce. He was the
Okay.
Christian McCaffrey basically of the New York Football Giants.
Okay, so it doesn't your argument's irrelevant of now he left, crushed it, doesn't matter. You still would not have paid him.
I still would
Right.
not have paid him.
Okay. And so again, but then that's your logic across the board then. It doesn't matter who it is. Most of these contracts should be just incentive laden, should not be
I think,
guaranteed.
like I said, it's not going to have the culture of the NFL. That the reason why this is happening is the culture of the NFL. This is the accepted culture at this point. I think there has to be rule changes. It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. It's fun to talk about, but it's never going to happen. There has to be rule changes within the money that, contracts have to be, it's not a free for all. Contracts just can't be negotiated to whatever they want. There has to be rules of engagement with basically, with agents. You know, I don't even know if there's a cap with how much an agent can actually physically make. I think that's the biggest thing. There's probably, Howie, whatever, Rittenhouse or whatever his name is, he's probably making like 20% of some of these contracts with the guaranteed money.
Drew Rosenhaus.
Howie, Drew
You
Rosenhaus, whatever.
mixed him up with Howie Roseman.
Yeah, whatever.
No,
But
no, I agree with you, but remember, like if there's quote caps or quote rules then you're breaking the NFL's collective bargaining agreement by that point. You got to remember, which by the way, not to be ironic, but like all these caps and rules and all this other stuff, there are salary caps on each team. So like ultimately, like we end at some point, we'll get into this maybe at some point in this offseason, just like my issues why Joe Burrow is my least favorite player in the NFL. Like it's a whether you like it or not, it is literally communism on each team. It's a salary cap. It is a set amount of money. Now I got it over time that money inflates because of the salary cap increases or whatever, but more money to one player literally means less money for the rest of the team. So to your point about players like their motivations and what they want, I never understood to a singular player that was all about wanting to win. And even if you wanted notoriety, winning Super Bowls and stuff, that's going to get you your notoriety. Like to me as a player, like how much of a difference is it between 30 million and 60 million? Like how much of a difference to you is that versus maybe that other 30 million gets spread amongst other players on that team, helps you gain other players, and then you could go win a Super Bowl and then win another Super Bowl. And then you have all this money from Wawa who pays you money
Correct.
or whoever
Tom Brady
like
did it.
yeah, or whatever else. Like, right, Tom Brady did it among many other players. Shaquille O'Neal has made more money
Papa John's.
since leaving the NBA than he was in the NBA from every, the general store and all this other crap that he does. I don't understand why players don't get that. You're so obsessed with making a brand, do it that way instead of handicapping your team like Joe Burrow did and other players on his team who we could mention. But so we're in agreement, but like you mentioned, like they've already set this in motion. There's no going backwards. This is going to be an endless negotiation over guaranteed amounts of money. And that's why, from a fantasy analysis, it's going to be like, okay, can we identify players who are going into contract years who haven't been paid yet? I could make the argument that maybe JSN doesn't perform the way that he did the last 2 years for the rest of his career. I could make that argument.
I believe that's a clear thing that's about to happen. Why
Maybe,
can't everybody just be like Juwan Jennings?
Juwan Jennings didn't get paid. So, I mean,
He
really a
didn't,
better,
but he
really a
but last year it was an incentive contract.
honestly, a better comparison would be why can't everybody be Larry Fitzgerald? Larry Fitzgerald doesn't matter if he's paid, not paid, awful quarterback, great quarterback, dying on the field every single play. But that's a rare thing. That's a rare thing. And nowadays, and honestly, like this comes back to the conversation we had about Shador Sanders, the way that the public is and the way that the fandom is, if you bring this up to fans, they're going to say, I don't. Why would any player do that? You're what we're doing. You're speaking for the man. Let the man go get paid. Doesn't matter. Let him. Who cares if he plays or not? Let the man go get paid. You guys sound like bootlickers. Like this is what people say online about this kind of stuff. The fact that we're fans who would like players to play at their full potential for those teams. That makes us bad people for saying that. I
No, it's cult like.
I know, and I think in we don't have to go off tangents and something, but I think social media we could say social media has completely ruined us as a people, as a humanity. I think social media has ruined it. But I think that money and a lack of money from lots of people, like it's ruined the way we think about things. And I think, and one of the things at some point maybe we talk about the NFL and the NBA. I don't think people realize how much players don't care about you. I don't think people really think that it's like, oh yeah, we would be friends, or oh yeah, like they don't care about you. So you don't have to have sympathy for them if they're load management in the NBA or if they're like threatening to hold out because they didn't get an extra $5 million on the guaranteed contract. Like I have very little sympathy for that. I know you and I are on the same page, but man, and I know people, we could name people who we know that if we were to say this, would be like, don't fault the man for getting paid. That's what they'll say. You know,
Yeah,
it's it's tiring.
it is very tiring.
Yeah. So I don't know. We're not going to come to an easy solution on that. On the upside, I think this makes things a little bit easier in terms of fantasy analysis. We could at least point these things out and call it out from where we see it, and at least say where, hey, listen, this is where we think people are going to fall, and this is who we think people who's going to, try harder. So we'll do our best. We'll do our best.
And
So,
we hit last year on a lot of them,
oh yes, we did. We smash hit on almost all those guys that we identified
except
those
for
before.
JSN.
That's right.
Don't fall into the trap.
JSN will be ranked pretty high for us, but I don't think we're not going to have him ranked. We probably
He
won't
won't.
have him ranked top five.
He
I
will
don't
not
think.
be on any of my teams next year. Let's just put it that way.
Versus where he's being drafted currently, probably
Correct.
not. Yeah. That's again, it's not a knock on JSN. It's just like it's always in comparison with whoever else might be going against him. That's all.
Hmm.
So, so there we go. That was a nice little non-controversial episode that we just had. Um, so next week we're going to be taking a little time off, and then we'll see what happens after that, and then we'll be gearing up for the NFL draft, and then we'll go to reactions to that and other stuff after that. Closing thoughts, Mr. Lang?
Yeah, we appreciate everybody that takes the time to watch our video. All of you have made it to here. If you could please like, share, and subscribe, that would greatly be appreciated.
Yes. Thank you very much, everybody.
Have a good night.